8M2 lesson 12, angles associated with parallel lines. A lot of what is key about today is going to be learning 4 definitions. These definitions are transversal, corresponding angles, alternate interior angles, and alternate exterior angles. And we're going to learn some relationships that are very key with these angles, and we're going to go through that very quickly. So again, we're going to go through some vocabulary, then we're going to go through some rules about that, those angles and relationships. Then we're going to hit some homework help, hopefully maybe 15, 20 minutes. Okay, here we go. Let's hit it. Okay, so this is out of your book, and so or out of your worksheet, Engage New York / Eureka Math, and this is exploratory challenge number 2. Now notice L1 and L2 in this case are parallel. You can kind of see that. I'm going to kind of twist it. You can kind of look at them, flat on like this, and you can see that they're parallel. You can also use some other tools that can help you figure out that they're parallel, but let's just take it from me that they are parallel, and they've told you that they're parallel. Now, what you want to know is there's 4 definitions that I told you we're going to have to know. And so let's just go over those. Right now, those are transversal. A transversal. And that is a line. That is simply a line that cuts, or intersects 2 other lines. Okay, so that's our that's a transversal. So in this case, we have our transversal, our line that cuts 2 other lines. This would be our transversal, right? And they call this, they're labeling this line M in this case. So line M is our, and so in this case, it's, whatever, it's line M. So let me just, let me circle that in red to match the red above, and let's go back to green. Okay, so that's our transversal. So now everything, our other definitions are going to map to knowing, understanding what a transversal is. And so our first definition is corresponding angles. And this is angles that occupy the same relative position when a transversal, cuts 2 lines. Or, let's not use the word cuts. Let's use the word intersects. So we're going to be looking, when we're dealing with transversals, we're dealing with 2 intersections. So here's kind of one intersection right here of lines, and here's the second intersection, because that transversal intersects these 2 other lines. So if you think about these as intersections, maybe on a map, or whatever kind of intersection, there are angles that are in the same relative position. So let's look at those. So we could talk about, in blue here, we can talk about this angle and the angle that is in the same relative position. This angle is in the top, kind of the top right. So this one, find the angle that is in the top right intersection down here is 6, because this is in the top right. So angle 2 and angle 6 are corresponding angles. Okay, and it turns out that there will be 4 corresponding angles. Let's see if we can find another set. What angle would be corresponding to angle 3? So what angle? Angle 3 is in the bottom right. So what angle, question, what angle corresponds to angle 3? Well, angle 3 is in the bottom right. So for those of you who said, well, the angle that is in the bottom right is also angle 7, you would be correct. So angle 7 is the right answer. Now, can you name, the other 2 corresponding pairs of angles? Okay, now let's name the other 2 pairs. Of corresponding angles. Well, you have angle 1 and angle 5. Angle 1 and angle 5. And also you have angle 4, bottom left, and angle 8. So the answer is angle 1 and angle 5 and angle 4, comma, angle 8. So that's corresponding. So we can write them here. We can go angle 2, comma, angle 6, angle 3, comma, angle 7. Angle 1, comma, angle 5, and then angle 4 and angle 8. All right, well, we're going to need to erase all this stuff because we need to now use this same drawing here. Boom. So you can always use YouTube, fast forward, rewind, but let's look at the next set of definitions. Okay, so we have, again, let's do, angle 1, comma, angle 5, angle 2, comma, angle 6, angle 3, comma, angle 7, and angle 4, comma, angle 8. Okay, so let's now go and talk about the next definition, which is called alternate interior angles. And this is kind of interesting terminology, but the key, alternate interior angles are angles on opposite, and let's follow these words, on opposite sides of transversal and inside the 2 other lines. Okay, so we need angles on opposite sides. So if this is our transversal, remember our transversal is this green line here. Well, angles that are on inside, we want ones that are inside the 2 lines. So we can't talk about, we're not going to talk about angle 2 and angle 1 or angle 8 and angle 7 because they're not inside these 2 parallel lines. So if I'm talking, and we want angles on opposite sides of the transversal. So if we talk about angles that are inside but on opposite sides, we're talking about angle 3 and angle 5. And there's also one other set of alternate interior angles. If 3 and 5 are on opposite sides but inside the line, there's also an alternate interior angle of 4, in which one is inside the line but on opposite side from the green. Right, it's angle 6. right? So 4 and 6 are alternate interior, and 3 and 5 are alternate interior angles. Okay, and again, these are just definitions. You're going to have to learn them, but alternate is kind of key. So alternate. You know what? I'll spell it nicer, so it's nice and easy to read. Alternate. Alternate means alternate sides of the lines, and interior means inside these two lines. All right. Okay. You know what I'm going to do? I'm going to go and grab another copy of this picture so that we can start from scratch. Bam, brand new picture. Okay, now the last thing we need to talk about, oh, and then we're gonna have to talk about the rules, is alternate exterior. Alternate exterior angles. And these are angles on alternate, on still mean on opposite sides of transversal. That's what alternate means. And outside the other two lines. So now we're looking at angles on the outside of these lines. So we can't be talking about 3, 4, 5, and 6 because those are interior. Our exterior angles are 1, 2, 8, and 7. Now, if we talk about angle 1, what would be the alternate exterior angle to 1? It would be alternate would be on the other side of the transversal exterior. So 1 and 7. And then the other pair of alternate exterior angles would be 2 and 8. Okay, so now we have our 4 definitions, but the rules of corresponding angles, alternate interior angles and alternate exterior angles is all the same. When a transversal, and here's the key, when a transversal cuts 2 parallel lines, corresponding angles are congruent. Corresponding angles are congruent. So are alternate interior angles, and so are alternate exterior angles. Let's look at that. So what this says is that corresponding angles says that we'll use blue. Angle 2 and angle 6, these angles are equivalent or corresponding, 2 and 6. So angle 2 and angle 6 are equivalent. And how can we mark that? We can put a line like this and say they are equivalent. They are congruent. They have the same measure if L1 and L2 are parallel. Similarly, angle 4 and angle 3 and angle 7 are equivalent. They are the same measure. So that's corresponding. And so are these two angles, 1 and 5, and so are 4 and 8. Now let's look at alternate interior angles. So we know that angle 3 and angle 5 are equivalent. So let's draw that. Cool. What can we say about angle 6 and angle 4? Well, they're equivalent. So if that's that size, then this is this one. Angle 4 and angle 8 are corresponding, so they must be equivalent. And angle 5 and angle 1 are equivalent or corresponding, so they must be equivalent. So it's kind of neat. Well, and we even know that angle like 2 and 4 must be equivalent because they are vertical angles, and we learned that last year. But it's neat that all adds up and that all makes sense, because if 2 and 4 didn't end up to be the same thing, we know that there'd be something inconsistent. But because they're vertical angles, they are equivalent, but also because 2 and 6 are equivalent or congruent, and 2 and 8 must be equivalent because they're alternate exterior angles. Then 8 and 4 must be equivalent because they're corresponding. See how all this ties together? 2 ties to 6 because they're corresponding. 2 ties to 8 because they're alternate exterior. And 6 ties to 8 because they are vertical. Cool. So it all ties together, just bringing in what we learned last year. So let's move on and let's ask some questions. Let me ask you some questions. So let's pretend that we measure angle 2. And let's say that angle 2, the measure of angle 2 equals 120 degrees. Or let's make it 122 degrees. So my question to you is, what is angle 6 equals what? The measure of angle 6, and why? And then why? The measure of angle 5 equals blank, and why? And then the measure of angle Now let's do this, make this one be measure of angle 8. And then we'll do measure of angle 5. And then y. So let's just go through this. Okay, you can try this. If you're ready to try it, go ahead and try it on your own and pause. But otherwise, I'm just going to go through this right now. Well, the measure, I said, so if you wanted to try it, I'm glad you did. If you didn't, let's just watch this, and then we'll do another exercise in a second. So the measure of angle 6, because we have 2 and 6 are corresponding angles, the measure of angle 6 must also be 122 degrees, because angle 2 and angle 6 are corresponding. So the measure of angle 8. Now, there's 2 reasons you could say measure of angle 8 is 122 degrees. And you could say it for one of 2 reasons. You could say, well, it's 122 because 2 and 8, you could say because angle 2, comma, angle 8 are alternate exterior angles. Or you could say because angle 6 and angle 8 are vertical angles. Right? This is 122, this is 122, and this is 122. Now the measure of angle 5, you have to go back to 7th grade and say, well, that is equal to 58 degrees. And the reason is because angle 5 and angle 6 are linear angles. Remember that? Because if you take two angles, if these two angles, 5 and 6, make up this line, right? If angle 5, let me get rid of that. If angle 5 plus angle 6 are two angles that add up to a line, they must equal 180. So if angle 5 plus measure of angle 6 equals 180, and I know that angle 6 is 122, then I know that the measure of angle 5 plus 122 equals 180. And so I can subtract 122 from both sides, and I can say, well, the measure of angle 5 must equal 58 degrees. And if you want to fill the whole thing out now, if this is 58 degrees, angle 7 must be 58 degrees because these are vertical. Angle 1 must be 58 degrees because it corresponds to angle 5. Angle 4 must be 122 because it's vertical to angle 2, or because it corresponds with angle 8. And angle 3 has got to be 58 degrees because it's vertical to angle 1, or because it corresponds to angle 7, whichever one you want to say. Okay, wonderful stuff. Now let's move on. So this was kind of homework help. Let's do another one. So now I'm going to tell you that angle 1 equals 45 degrees. Now, let's make it 40 degrees. So now you need to tell me, so now you tell me angle 2, angle 3, angle 4, angle 5, angle 6, angle 7, and angle 8 equals. So pause plus try. Now I assume you're back. So we've said that this is 40 degrees. What? Now let's fill in the rest. Well, okay, angle 5 corresponds. So angle 5 is 40 degrees because it corresponds to angle 1. Angle 7 is equal to 40 degrees because it's vertical to angle 5. Angle 3 is 40 degrees because it's vertical 40 degrees because it's vertical to angle 1. Now, angle 2 is equal to 140 degrees because it forms linear pair with angle 1. Now we can say, well, angle 6 is 140 degrees because it corresponds to angle 2. Angle 8, well, angle 4 is 140 degrees because it's vertical to angle 2. And that leaves angle 8 is 1. And let me give you a different one. There's 3 ways you can show it. It's vertical to 8, it corresponds to 4, but I'm going to say it's alternate exterior to angle 2. Could have said, I could have said 3 other reasons here. Okay. Cool. Now so this was homework help. We'll put a happy cat on this guy. Good job. And let's move on to our last piece of homework help. And that is this. That is this. Why are corresponding angles congruent? And the hint is to think about lesson 1 through lesson 11. And specifically translation. Now, I'm going to give you the hint here, and I'm really going to harp on it. So let's just think about this angle here. So think about angle 2 and angle 6. That's our hint. Our hint is to think about lesson 1 to 11 translation and angle 2 and angle 6. And think about what about translation could help me see that angle 6 must be the same Okay, so think about that and pause, think about it, and then come back and I'll tell you the answer. And here's the answer. Let me see if I can do this by selecting. Okay. Well, not going to be able to do it by selecting, but let's just say that we had these two angles. I'm having a hard time selecting this using this tool here. Let's see if we can do it. Let's try it one more time. So if I just take this angle and I translate it down, dang it, it's not letting me select it. Let me try. I'm going to try one last time. Nope, won't let me select it. But if I just drag this angle straight down to this angle, notice I would be translating it along this line here. And if I translate that angle just by dragging it down to this other angle, it would be here. Let's see if we can do it like this. Yeah, so there we go. So let's just do it like this. So we had our angles here. We had our angles here. Now we're going to do it like this. Watch. So we took our angle here, and we're just going to translate it along this line straight up to here. And you can see that those two lines, those two angles then must be the same. Because remember, the rule of translation says that if you translate an angle, any shape, any angle, any line, or any line segment, if you translate it, the angle measures will be preserved. And so that's the key. Okay, so let's put a big, giant happy cat stamp on this guy. Let's call this a day. Good learning. Thanks for hanging with me. We will return with lesson 13 on tomorrow. And otherwise, good learning and happy. Yes, translation. I love translation. I love corresponding angles. See you next time.